All right, good morning. Welcome to the morning briefing. It's Thursday, September 1st, and this is episode 195. We are almost to that special magic number of 200. I can't wait to get to episode 200. We have some new programming planned for you and show enhancements at episode 200. So please join us along the way and make sure you don't miss episode 200. I am Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM, and this is the only show that brings you practical, timely, accurate insight into today's workplace. It is our goal to keep you informed so you can more effectively lead your organization. My partner in crime, Bert Garland, is not with me today, but nevertheless, I have a special guest, Kris Gfell. Kris is the business manager for AIM's HR services. And after spending the last month at conferences, I thought it would be a great idea to bring Kris on and let's talk about some AIM resources to you because some things have come to light for me. But before that, let me introduce the poll question for today. The question is, do you utilize employee opinion or engagement surveys? And you have a few choices for your response. Yes, we get great information from them. Yes, but we don't get the level of information we hope to. No, I know if we did it, it would be great information to have. And no, for one reason or another, we do not do surveys. All of those can be fair answers, and we'd love to get your input. Again, it means so much from us to hear you. If you have additional comments on that or anything else, please add those to the chat question, and we'll be sure to get those. All right. So first, I mentioned that we spent the last month here at AIM at different state conferences, and we had our own AIM Wayfinder Summit here in St. Louis at the factory. It was a great event just last week. Just the last few days, I was at Indiana SHRM, in Indianapolis. And it is, I think, maybe the second largest state conference held in all of the SHRM states, and it was fantastic. It was a great conference. We had our conference here in Missouri as well at Lake of the Ozarks, which is always a blast in and of itself. And in both of those events and at the AIM Wayfinder event, there's some common themes that come out from the people we talk to. Now, there's two different kinds of people that come to these events. And having the opportunity to host an event, having the opportunity to be a vendor at the event, being speakers at events, and also been in your shoes where I'm also there seeking information in the past. There's been some really good takeaways, and I want to just chat with them and then line up some of our services maybe to help our members, because you, after all, are what's most important to myself. All right, so there's two different type of people I see at these events. There's those people who kind of walk by, they kind of give you a look out of the corner of your eye, and they're not real sure whether or not how to say hello, but they might want to, and they're unsure. And then there's those people that come straight up to you and they ask you and they say, here's my problem. Can you help me solve it? I'm looking for a yes or no. And they just start drilling in. And that's my favorite type of individual, because we can get right to the nuts and bolts of the matter with that. That second group that's asking the question comes to a conference understanding what they're looking for and why they're there. The first group may also know what they're looking for, but not sure how to ask the question. And that's what we're going to focus on today, is solving some of these problems. And that's why we have Kris with us today. Kris, as I said, is the business manager for AIM, leading the HR practices. He works with our members on a daily basis, solving their HR challenges. Kris, good morning. Welcome to the program. I think this is your first time on the program.
First time in a long time. I think it's been probably a year and a half almost.
Well, that just means you've been busy for the last year and a half.
We've been really busy. That is for sure. No, thanks for having me on this morning, Phil.
Yeah. And for our listeners who didn't catch Kris the first time he was on, and you haven't worked with Kris in the past, Kris works and lives in Indianapolis. He is a native of Michigan. He has practice in the automotive industry as an HR professional. So he's, wore the shoes that we've worn in our battles in HR. He very much understands what it's like to be an expert in some areas, knowledgeable in others, and have no idea how to solve some of the challenges that we're expected to solve in other areas. He's also worked as an independent consultant and now as an AIM business manager. And he works directly with our members to solve their problems. So when you call in and you're needing help, you will find yourself often talking with Kris or someone on Kris's team to solve those problems. So Kris, we are happy to have you on the program. Kris, we were together in Indianapolis. Tell me anything in Indy that stood out to you at that conference that you found interesting.
Yeah, no, Phil, it was a great conference. The level of people and the size of the groups that were there was really phenomenal. And that just tells you, I think people are in the phase of learning. They're developing themselves, and they're really looking to take some skills and some resources back to their organizations. And that seemed to be the theme for what was covered over the 2.5 days within this conference.
Yeah, and it no doubt was the theme. And I know often you're talking to people and I'm talking to people and we're not talking to each other. And this is the first chance we've had to come back together since then. But, the themes that I saw is themes on compensation, hiring related to compensation. I need compensation because we can't hire, or we're losing people and we're not able to retain. So compensation is kind of interwoven there. And then the next one is, we want to retain those employees that we have. We don't want to lose them because that's an avenue to solving the demand of hiring, right? Because we have demands on hiring because of growth and we have demands on hiring because of attrition. And when you add those two things together, it can be overwhelming for HR professionals. So let's start first with compensation. So AIM provides several compensation resources. Tell me what it is and how you're using them with our members. What I want to do is break down the questions that we've had over the last month and how does our membership benefits serve our members to give them an advantage to win.
Yeah, Phil, I think compensation is obviously probably one of the bigger topics that people are requesting and looking for support on. And I always go back to the first thing is, let's make sure that our members do really understand what's available to them. So we're going to start with how can we get information on specific positions to them, maybe hot positions they're getting ready to recruit for. They maybe just need some information and alignment on what that compensation looks like. So we've got our member benefits around ERI, so Economic Research Institute, where we can go in and look at specific information for them, again, included in membership. But then more important, we want to build in multiple sources, multiple data sources. So as you know, AIM does a ton of surveys, national surveys, regional surveys. So let's pull those data points in. And then at the same time, we want to be able to go out there and find that third resource, which can really come up in some different ways with our members, to be able to support what they're looking for and be able to build in really this full aggregate of data that says back to the organization, I'm not just going out and Googling something. I'm going to really go in and find and research and find the right resource for really the salary for salary administration, and to build this to build the knowledge and awareness of a position and what the salary requirements could be today, because as we know, far different from what that looks like a year ago or 3 years ago.
Yeah, and what I'm finding in my conversation is there are many organizations that haven't had the need in the last, I'll just say 10 years, to have a formal compensation structure. So what they're not sure is, where do I benchmark from? What data source? Employees come in and go, hey, my job, I have a new job offer and it's going to offer me X number of dollars more. Or I've done some research online and I'm not paid at a competitive place. I like my employer. I don't want to leave, but my gosh, you guys aren't paying me fairly and competitively. And as the HR professional, and have had that happen in my career, first, you're caught a little bit off guard and you're not prepared. Two, if you don't have a structure, you're not sure what to comment on. And what to use as your benchmark. And then three, you're not sure where to go to help move that conversation forward in a productive manner. And that's why we provide the three. right? So I know I've been in the conversations and you're suggesting, look, go get all three sources, circle the data. This is why we provide three, so that the HR professional can say, I've looked at three different valid resources, and all three of these are saying something in this range seems to be a fair rate of pay for that position. Not what I pulled off of Google, not what is free available online. It's not, the Glassdoor pay range, or even Indeed that gives suggested pay ranges. It's valid resources. And these are the resources we use at our company to determine competitive pay. And you'll find the range is this big, but where do you want to zero in at? And then if you need additional help, I know people then turn to your resource, Michael Makakovich. People online know Mikey. People who are at the HR Summit know Mikey. And they know that then what Mikey is able to do is bring a professional structure and strategy to that. What are some of the barriers to get over when people have used the three data resources and they've decided, you know what, we want some professional help yet? So you'll be in a conversation with an HR professional. Then where does that normally go to next?
So, and being there. So, and I think, Phil, let me go back to, you gave a little bit of my background and kind of being in the mix before. So I was an HR party of one for 10 years. And you're expected to know everything, but we don't know everything. And we're not experts, especially in compensation. That's very one difficult area. So we're going to rely on experts to help bring them in. And where I sat before and where I have conversations with members is all about how can we help you learn a little bit more about compensation. But it's not the numbers that come through. It's how do I then take this up to my management? What information can we arm somebody with to really go forward with and have conversations with their leaders, with the executive teams, to really help share the knowledge, share the awareness, and then you get into the background and set up your program and your structure. Doing an analysis on one job is very different than taking a structure approach and building a structure for an organization or tier levels within an organization. And that's really where we just start to have conversations around, because I know as an HR manager or a party of one, that's probably one thing that I get some anxiety about is how do I take this to my leadership? Well, let's bring in a third party and let's look and support. And sometimes that third party doesn't cost anything. And sometimes there is a little bit of service fee, but at the end of the day, it's let's build a program or let's just get good data that I can take forward.
So that's an interesting thing. You say, hey, let's take this on. And I know you run into this same problem that I do. That creates big pause for an HR professional. Let me help you with this by talking with your manager. And particularly HR departments of one seem to get real nervous about that. And of course, if the more you know and you like someone, the more you can trust them and the more that can move on. And I know that's kind of the pattern that we see, but there's no shame in it. But when I ask HR professionals about that, they respond like this. Well, my boss expects me to know. Then my boss thinks I should solve this problem. And what I think is going on in the back of their mind sometimes is, well, I don't want you to talk to them because they might know that you know more than I know, and then they might not think that I'm competent in what I'm doing. And I mean, that could be furthest from the objective when we're asking to speak with somebody. Have you found that to be a barrier to helping solve the problem?
It certainly comes up. And this is where there's comfort levels built in, and some people are just more comfortable in being, I think it's a vulnerability piece that we run into, that's there. But at the same time, business doesn't happen without support from other resources as well. And I think that's one piece that's there is AIM is a resource for our members. And really, it's not just a resource for HR. We're a resource all the way up through leadership in an organization. So again, that's when I have conversations, it's really around, okay, how can we help you get through and how can we help you understand maybe what the information is, but then also, okay, let's engage with your leaders and bring them into a conversation. When we we do Zoom calls, phone calls, we can be there in person. Let's engage with a manager to bring them in so they can really understand who we are and what that message really is about.
Yeah, and I think that when you have the HR leader engaging the rest of the business leaders in the solution, then we start solving problems.
Yep.
When the HR leader is stuck solving the problem by themselves, I feel really bad for that person because it's a darn near impossible solution to solve. I mean, we don't do it with quality. The quality manager involves everyone to solve the quality problems. If there's a financial problem, the CFO gets leadership involved and they solve the financial problem. Operations has a team of people and they solve the problem. And I encourage HR leaders to take that same approach. Bring them together. Let's lay the challenge out on the table because it's a company challenge. It's not an HR challenge. All right, Nick, let's look at the survey here if we can real quick and see what kind of results we're getting, because I'm seeing all kinds of comments on this one. So if you can share the results with us, please.
Yeah, we're looking at, this is probably the most evenly divided that we've ever had here. So do you utilize employee opinion or engagement surveys? And 42.9% say yes, and we get great information from them. And 33.3% say no, but I know if we did, it would be great information to have. And then we follow that up with yes, but we do not get the level of information we hope to.
And then as I'm reading at some of these comments, I'm just going to pair. There's too many comments here to comment on, but people are saying we do them ourselves, which is absolutely fine. But I know it's not the preferred practice for this reason, that a lot of employees are saying our employees don't trust that it'll be anonymous. Well, that sometimes comes out of trying to do them yourselves when you don't have a third party involved. There's some comments about how do we get more people to give us responses. We've been doing them for a while. We're not getting responses. There's some challenges to that would suggest that there's a trust problem right away to me. And sometimes having someone like Kris, or if you were at the HR Summit, you met Tanya, and having Tanya involved to help solicit engagement on those surveys so that you get the best data, as well as those people to say they have the same questions, not sure if they should stay with the same questions or use different questions. We definitely love the approach of staying within a frame set of the same questions so that you can trend whether or not the programs you're implementing are making a difference. But there should be a space where you can add a question or two that might be addressing current trends or topics, but that is not a space that we suggest you add lots of questions to. Other people are making comments just around whether or not they are getting, they get surveys, they don't get a lot of comments. That's not always unusual. If you are getting a lot of comments, again, that would suggest high trust. If you're not getting a lot of comments, you may also consider the fact that either all the questions were addressed and there's no more comments to be made, or that there, again, could be an underlying trust issue. When there's underlying trust issues, those are places for us to get concerned. And what we would look for is one department getting comments and another department not. And there's lots of ways to break that down, but keep making your comments here. We'd like to see what they are, and we'll come back to those. Kris, let's move on to probably what's sitting in the center of all of this is hiring. And Nick, I don't know if the audience can see on my screen here, but they've seen this chart before. Real quick, this is the chart of the working age population, and it's provided by the United Nations. And what it's showing is the US population age 15 through age 64, that group of population that we're going to be hiring from. And if you can't read the chart, just follow my finger. What we know is this was our highest point. We're now down here. And in every model run after that through 2090, the population just declines right down the chart here. What that tells us is almost no matter what happens in the economy, barring a depression, we will never have it easier than today for the purposes of recruiting. There's nothing going to happen in or across the country that's going to make recruiting like it used to be in the good old days. All right. think of it this way. You're living the good old days right now. So if you're having problems and you think it's tough and it almost seems unsolvable, this is the good old days for where we're going. And that is not a very comfortable position to be in. And I know a lot of questions came my way at all three events that I was at last month, centered around recruiting, and compensation was because of recruiting. Engagement surveys sometimes was because they were having problems retaining people, everything around the issue of recruiting. Kris, you help people recruit every single day. Talk to us about the services and benefits. And I'm asking about the HR by the hour in particular here.
Sure. So recruiting is the hottest topic that we're having conversations about. We can support HR departments of various sizes in a lot of different ways. And the recruiting piece always comes through first. And where people are at. I mean, HR party of one, we'll just take this case here as an example. HR party of one, and they just need arms and legs, right? Because they have maybe 8 to 10 positions open. And it could be some positions that they're constantly recruiting for, or maybe a key position became open suddenly. They're focused on all this other stuff that happens in HR, right? This recruiting is just one piece that happens, and they just need more arms and legs. And that's where bringing in a recruiter can help. And a recruiter being, let's find somebody who can be an extension of their team. And this is one way that really helps is I'm going to come in and use your resources, use your applicant tracking system, use your process, meaning communication process, interview scheduling, and really just be a member of your team and extension there. Sit wherever they need to sit, but really go out and find candidates, source candidates for you. Because at the end of the day, what I'm having the most conversation about is I don't have enough time. I'm pulled in so many directions, especially now we're into budgeting season. Open enrollment is happening all over the place. And those are both time vacuums, right? That just takes time and energy.
Hey, and so, while I'm doing that, I also got to be hiring and onboarding and offboarding and everything else.
Everything else continues to happen. So it's arms and legs are needed. But at the same time, maybe not use and build a new process. Let's just use your process. And that's the key part that we're coming in here, because again, we know HR parties are spread thin. It's really getting in and just trying to find how can we really source candidates and bring new people into the organization. Just let's get them into interview. Let's get them in and introduce.
So the issue there becomes, again, I know the number of people that confide in us are like, look, I don't think my boss is going to go for this, right? They expect me to do that. Do you find when you're in conversation with their boss, you get to that point, you're like, let me help you express to your boss the challenge. How do you find those conversations going traditionally?
Usually what the case is the boss wants help. The boss wants to see people, right? The leader wants to see more candidates coming through. They want to see positions filled. It's really then bringing in hey, we're a third party. We're going to come in and just help explain, here's what's going on. And that's sometimes just eye-opening and, okay, we need to hear it from a different source at certain times and really come in and explain, this is not just you. This is happening all over. This is something that's stressing out HR groups and HR people, and to be more effective and to really get what you're looking for in terms of metrics and people, sometimes it just takes a little extra help. And really, I'll use my background, I'll use our AIM resources, and we'll have a conversation about what it takes and really what it means to help recruit and to help bring some resources in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not reasonable to think that an HR professional is going to be able to facilitate, particularly if you're a team of 1, 2, or 3, all of the challenges of recruiting that you have, all of the employee relations issues that are existing because of the social times that we're in, open enrollment periods coming up, high vacation periods. We're just coming off of that, and production at the highest point it's been with supply chain challenges that we have. To think that at any point, a very small, probably understaffed team, that's about every HR organization I'm talking to, is going to be ahead of the curve in many areas. So it's, how do you position yourself to win? And that's the only thing that we're really trying to help you with is win, right? That our focus is to help our AIM members win at that game.
Yeah. And Phil, if I can add in one thing there as well, is sometimes it just takes a conversation as thought starters, and do nothing more but talk about a problem that you have. And there's a lot of different ways to solve it, but let's just have a conversation, because maybe that person, again, we don't know it all as an HR generalist manager. We're out there using our resources and gaining knowledge.
That's right. It's exactly right. And I do know, because I spend a lot of time with the executive leaders as well, they want the problem solved. And they often are saying, look, I know my HR team is working hard. I know the cards are stacked against them. I know they want to pay more, and I'm not going to let them pay more. But at the same time, then you want to take some different approaches. Let's not keep driving and running into the same wall with the same approach. Let's take a different approach. Beth is asking a question here about how do you combat a manager who does not have a belief in the AIM ERI data because he himself thinks he's underpaid? That's not unusual, is it? It's like, well, I don't believe that data. I want to believe the source that I found that pays me more. Beth, there's a couple of approaches to that. One is that's why we provide the 3 resources, so that you can circle it with all 3 resources, not just ERI. You want to use the BLR resource that's provided, and then our national and local surveys that are provided. And through the 3 of those, you'll be able to make more than a compelling answer to say, this is where we pay, and this is what we think. Now, for some reason you think the person is underpaid, then you might want to adjust your range to accommodate that based upon the contributions that they make. And then, as well as if it's a hybrid role, I know in the ERI, you can create hybrid roles and add 2 or 3 different job profiles together to get a range of pay. And often hybrid roles are the ones that are the hardest to identify as well. All right, Kris, let's talk about these engagement surveys. You saw the results just a minute ago. I know you've been reading the chat questions, but so tell me about the engagement surveys and the role that they're playing and what you're finding in that area.
No, Phil, engagement surveys that we have found this year have been extremely valuable to organizations, but valuable in different ways. I think the first piece that comes through is the organization has to know, when you do an engagement survey of any kind, be prepared to do something with the information. Don't just do one and then say, all right, we did that and that's going to help us get better in the future, without an emphasis on it, without a strategy behind it. So 3 key pieces to focus on coming out of it is people, process, and communication. And, I'm going to start, let me move the 3rd one that I said, communication, up to the front, because it's absolutely the most important that you need to focus on coming out. And going back to Beth's question as well, I can roll this in around communication. And one strategy, if somebody's not on board with it because they don't trust it, they don't trust some of the data, or they think they're underpaid, let's focus on, do we really communicate what our process is well, what our philosophy around compensation is? Those are things that you kind of learn in an engagement survey, and specifically ours has questions on it. But that's a piece of saying, all right, I know everybody's got compensation issues, and that comes up. Pay is always on the lowest side of our overall question scores. But do people really understand it? Are we doing a good job as an organization to communicate, to bring people and process into play and help them intersect?
Yeah. And I think the other part of that is being able to show the progress you've made since the last survey, if you've done one prior, staying in a normal sequence. Ashley is making a comment that I think is common for a lot of professionals to think. And she's really saying, we use the same questions each year, and I feel as though employees see it as stale. I understand that the power of collecting the same data for trending, but at what point does it become less accurate? The employees are just clicking to get through it. Ashley, thanks for that question. I think what that's really maybe suggesting to me is we're not showing the impact of the actions that we're taking after the survey, one way or the other, or we're not making an impact with our actions. Right? Because if I know I'm going to score this survey with my fair and accurate opinion, management's going to take it serious and maybe work to improve things. I don't feel like the question's going to grow stale. And in that case, you're able to show the impact. And I've done the same surveys for years at employers and not run into that problem, because every time we would have an employee meeting, we would have that section of the survey that we're going to talk about our implementation plans. Kris, how does that work after you take the survey? What's the engagement level? We got 1 minute, Kris.
Sure. So once you take the survey, and to Phil's point, I think you want to tie everything that you're doing in the future back to the survey. Don't be afraid to do so, and keep it relevant. Engage people in a different way. Focus groups are a great way to go. They can be accomplished in many different ways. What you're doing is just kind of getting more information from people. You're getting some follow-up questions, but then you're driving some accountability as well with, now I'm going to build some action plans and really then get my leadership team engaged. We can't forget that. And then the last piece that has been probably the most focal point of the leadership teams this year, get back to focusing on your mission, vision, and values. That's the culture of an organization. That's driving it. Talk about it. It's going to help. When you start talking about it and looking at it, all of a sudden you're going to feel that 10% increase in engagement, or you're just going to feel a little more contribution back to the organization. Just bring it up, but really have a focus from your leadership team back to those processes.
All right. That is Kris Gfell. He's our business manager here at AAIM Employers Association. He's here to help you. He's helping our members every day. Kris, thank you very much for joining us. That's the end of the program. We will be back next week with Bert Garland on Thursday, 7:30 Central Time. See you then. Bye-bye.
Tell your story, promote your products, communicate with your employees and customers vividly, dynamically, and powerfully. Whether it's a company video, recruitment video, online training, or live meeting, Feature Group can help you, from scripting to highly polished finished production. Whether it's live or on demand, we have the skills and equipment to wow your audience and drive your message home. Feature Group USA, the one-stop shop for all your broadcasting needs.